I hate to be the bearer of bad news today. I should have picked more stories that were not like this serious, but this next one is really depressing. And it is about the fact that life expectancy in the United States has decreased for the first time. The average US life expectancy dropped by a complete year in 2020, in the first half of 2020, according to a new report from the National Center of Health Statistics. Life expectancy at birth for the total US population was 77.8 years, a decline of 1 year from 78.8 in 2019. Deaths from COVID-19 are the main factor in the overall drop in US life expectancy between January and June of 2020, according to the CDC. Also, drug overdose is included in that. But the group that suffered the greatest was Black men. Whereas the average life expectancy decreased by 1 year, for Black men, the average life expectancy decreased by 3 years. And so we've seen time and again that whereas Americans may be suffering, there are groups that suffer even more. And in this case, it's my direct demographic. And it is a result of COVID-19, but it's also a result of all of the systemic factors that play into health disparities in this country. But here we are in a nation, the wealthiest nation on the face of the planet. And yet again, we're demonstrating that we may be best viewed as a failed state. Cenk.
Yeah, so we have the usual culprits here. First of all, Trump and the Republicans basically minimized this, said it was no big deal in terms of coronavirus and the pandemic, and look at how hard it's hit us. I mean, there's a lot of different factors here. It's not just coronavirus, but it's taken a year off our lives. And then number two is all the corporate politicians, including maybe most guilty is the corporate Democrats. What do we need? Universal health care? Nah, everybody will be fine without universal health care. Let's let tens of millions of Americans have no health care at all. Let them die in the streets. And so why should we be surprised that our life expectancy is going down? Now, is it going down in developed nations? We're no longer a developed nation. We don't even have power in this country. I remember growing up in Turkey, the power would go out. I came to America, I was like, it's amazing, the power never goes out. Oops, not anymore. And so, but for actual developed nations, they all have universal health care. They don't let people die in the streets. And so their average life expectancy is going up, not down. And by the way, their healthcare costs half of what ours costs. Where does the other half go? It goes to corruption. It goes in the pockets of the executives and the politicians and all of that. They rob us blind and take a year off our life. And yes, corporate Democrats like Joe Biden definitely participate in that.
Not to be snarky and make light of the lower life expectancy, but thank God. I mean, I'm tapping out. I don't want to stay here any longer than is absolutely necessary. I mean, come on. You're like you guys said, we live in a failed state. We're living in a third world country at this point. I don't want to live that long, and Canada's not going to take me. So here we are.
Actually, Helen, I understand what you're saying. No, that's not snarky at all. Like, why would we want to continuously put up with this pathetic excuse for a country when we could literally do anything that we want? I mean, we have enough money to fix any problem we want to fix. Medicare for all should be nothing for us because we have the ability to build planes jets that don't even fly, right? We're able to spend billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars every year for war into the tunes of trillions of dollars, but yet and still we ignore the people. And this is what we're seeing across the country, right? This is what we're seeing in Texas. The ruling elite don't care about what's happening in Texas, no more than they care about all the people who are dying of COVID-19. We're approaching 500,000 people now, 500,000 lives. I always think about the movie V for Vendetta, when the big catalyst for the revolution for the protagonist was 80,000 people dying of a virus that the government didn't get control of. We're at 500,000. And so, I mean, I understand what you're saying. They're like, why would we want to continuously put up with a system that has zero regard for our lives, zero regard for what we could be doing better, where we have the ability in this country to literally make healthcare not accessible, but make sure every single person has healthcare. I'll tell you, as a black man, there are so many of us who simply do not have healthcare, do not have healthcare. And if we had something like Medicare for all, of course we would go to the doctor. Of course we would like to see live longer. Longevity has its place, correct? But in this country, they would much rather risk our lives in exchange for their quarterly profit margins.
Yeah, and nobody else is taking us. Canada's not taking us. Europe is not taking us in. I'm buying my coffin now. I'm lining up my casket now because I can't.
I'm not going that far with you. I'm not picking out my coffin. I would rather. I would rather like let's have a revolution first. Let's try it that way. But I agree with you. Like something absolutely has to be done.
Yeah, I think Canada is now saying about us, they're not sending their best. No, but in all seriousness, guys, it's almost part of the reason why we saw the Capitol riots. So obviously we know that the downs, like everything about the Capitol riots was the downside, but like we get the madness of that crowd. But one thing I'll say is that now, you see riots in cities and then you see the Capitol riot. And the one thing that they share is unbelievable frustration. And so when people have nothing left to lose, they get dangerous. And we have driven a gigantic percentage of our population. Yes, both Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and progressives. We've driven them to desperation. And now we're taking years off their lives. So when you don't even have your life left to lose, what do you think happens? So I don't want any of this to happen. Desperately trying to avoid it. But these elites that just want to maintain the status quo and keep crushing the rest of us, they're playing with fire. And I don't want them to play with fire. I don't want to be anywhere near that fire. But this, I'm afraid this is not going to end well.
100%. I mean, I just, the thing that Biden said this week about that he won't support eliminating student debt, that he just doesn't support it. And it's like, well, this is how Trump got into office in the first place. And if you just keep going down this road, what do you think's gonna happen in 4 years? Like your job is not secure. Trump is still out there. We haven't made it impossible for him to run again. And the same frustration, Cenk, like you were talking about, and anger and people backed up against a wall that put Trump in the office in the first place, that's gonna come right back and bite you in the ass, Biden, if you don't step it up.
Yeah. And Cenk, I just have to echo what you're saying. The fact that this is why politicians make laws so that their lives can be safe from even the hint of a threat, because they knew that they wanted to play games with our lives. But there is a threshold when people have nothing left to lose. I mean, if you think historically, revolutions have been fought when parents haven't been able to feed their children. And now we're not only at a place where parents can't feed their children, our parents can't even keep their children warm. And so, yeah, they're playing with fire. But I guess the real question is how much more can the American people handle?
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.